Hey everybody, how's it going? Skits here coming at you from Madness Central in the garage. I didn't keep up with my updates while I was on the road. It just, it was hard to do for me. It shouldn't have been, was. Anyway, last we left off, I was getting ready to go into Carlsbad Caverns, and that's why this one was important for me to make, because this is as much for me to look back on years from now as it is to, relate to other people what was going on. So I went down into Carlsbad Caverns. This was something that had been on my bucket list for a long time. It wasn't something that I had planned on doing this trip. I had thought about trying to do it, but Grand Canyon's 11 to 18 inches of snow, not going. And then I debated about a couple of things that I could do, and it hit me. I was like, oh, I'm near Carlsbad Caverns. I can see Roswell, New Mexico, and, go buy some hokey stuff that my wife said, if you go to Roswell, you need to get me some of these funny ear things. So I got her some funny alien things on springy stuff on the head, and got everybody else their trinkets from Roswell. I went to some museum there that was full of woo. And my Skepta Paul armor protected me from it. And I still don't believe in alien visitations from other planets or dimensions, whatever. So I was amazed, obviously, as my last video stated, about the drive up to Carlsbad. It's pretty cool in and of itself. Everywhere that I was out there once I got through Texas, maybe I just didn't go through such a pretty part of Texas, but Texas wasn't all that alluring. But once I got through Texas, it was just all very pretty. Even the desert was just gorgeous. So then you go down into these caverns. Now, I went later in the day. They closed the path at like 4:30, 4:45 from the natural entrance down. It's 750 feet. You make your way down through this path they have. It used to be a lot harder to go down. Now you got handrails and asphalt paving, and you can do it in a couple hours, where it used to take many hours, and you didn't go down as far. And so maybe it was a slow day or whatever. I saw 3 or 4 people, 2 of them coming up, walking up and out, huffing and panting and taking a break. That's a climb. And then I saw, I had a couple of people make it past me that came down after I did, but they were just walking around. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. As the girl at the desk said, she's like, you can do it in about 2 hours. Unless you like to gawk. And I said, well, of course I like to stop and gawk. And she goes, well, it'll probably take you close to 2.5, 3 hours. I started, I think, at 2. I got out of the caves off the elevator at 5 after 5. The pathway into the big room closes at 4:30, 4:45. So, there was a park ranger coming up behind me, and the last, the last 150 feet or so, something like that, he talked me through a couple of the things that I was seeing. He's like, don't hurry, but you're the last one. You have time. But, he was dogging my heels, so I didn't stop and look at a couple of things as close as I might have liked. But I did stop and look at everything, and he even was like, oh, well, here, I can tell you what you're going to hear on your self-guided thing. He goes, this is my section. And, so I, got a tour without paying for the tour. Neat. He was a very friendly guy. So, there was nothing wrong with that. And then he got down into the big room, and there was another ranger there. And he's like, okay, the path is clear. He's like, you have time. You can take the long way around. Go for it, man, So I took the long way around, saw everything that you can see. For the most part, I was by myself. Deathly quiet. It's so quiet. And even though when you first get underneath there, it doesn't seem very dark, as your eyes adjust, it's like your full daylight. But then as the pictures show, it's really pretty dark, even though you see them pretty well once your eyes adjust. And astounding things to see. And so well worth the trip. I'd love to go spend $15 pays for your pass for 3 days. And there's so much that you could see that I could see actually camping there for a few days and going down a few times. And sometime in my life, I'd like to go back and do that. Absolutely, absolutely. This was just kind of like, here, boom, 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 saw it, cross it off the bucket list. But I'd really like to go back, spend a little bit more time, learn a little bit more. Lots to learn, lots to learn. So when I was going through the town of Carlsbad on the way there, I was checking Google for hotel rooms and prices. I was like, well, it's a little pricey. It was 70 to 120 bucks for a hotel room. But I didn't get a room yet. I was like, oh, I'll get out, I'll find one. I want to hurry up and get to the caves and get in there. And I got all night, right? Well, I didn't. I got out and I got back into the town of Carlsbad. First there's White City at the top, tourist trap. A couple $100 for a room for a night, and I was like, nah, I'm on a $39.99 a night kind of budget here. So it was gonna hurt a little bit to do $70. I mean, I could afford it, but I was trying to keep the price of this trip down. So I get into Carlsbad and I'm like, all right, pull into a gas station. Let's find the hotel that you're gonna go by. And prices are starting at somewhere around $120 a night, going up to $450 all of a sudden. I get on Airbnb and I find some place for $40. I find a few of them for $40 and $50. But as I'm clicking on them, they're going unavailable as fast as I can click on them and try to, now they all go poof, bye. And, and then it was $200 a night on Airbnb. I don't know what was happening, but there was work trucks filling up the hotel rooms. I was still on the heels of Lucian, as far as I know. Maybe the roads were packing up and they were running in crews, and the hotels were filling up fast along the path. I guess. I don't know. No idea what happened to drive the price up and drive occupancy up so fast. So the closest place I found after that, middle of nowhere, then here's a town. That was on my way to my next destination afterwards, which was St. Louis to see my sister. It was 3 hours away in a town called Muleshoe, Texas. So, and they had a room for $40 for the night. And although I did want to stay and see the Living Desert Zoo, maybe even go back into the caverns one more time because I had paid for it. I was like, well, not with these hotel prices. So time to put the end of this part of the journey and on to St. Louis via Muleshoe, Texas. So I'm driving through oil fields. Now this is going to become important later. I'm driving through oil fields. I've called this place and they said, yeah, what's your name? What's your number? Oh, you're coming from Roswell. What's your name? What's your phone number? And what time do you expect to be here? It's like, well, I'll just make my reservation when we get there. And she goes, well, all you need is that stuff. And it's like, okay, here's my name. It's Balsh. Here's my number. And my GPS says I'll be there in about 3 hours. And I might need to make a stop for gas along the way. I haven't gotten gas yet today. So call it 3.5 hours. She's like, okay. And so I'm driving through and I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and, signal will cut out in between cell towers about every 10 minutes and the call drops and immediately I can call right back. And at one point the car stutters for a second and then picks back up. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. And I haven't seen anything about an hour and a half. And I see a gas station on the horizon. And I'm like, well, it's about time to stop and get gas. About the time I see the gas station, car dies off and picks back up then again. Weird. As I'm pulling into the gas station, the car starts and it won't start again. I'm coasting up. I'm not out of gas. When I'm trying to crank it, it'll start for a split second and die off. I was like, oh. On a Festiva, this sounds just like the main airflow sensors coming disconnected. Maybe I've got bad connection, or maybe it doesn't have the retaining clip on there and it's starting to come a little loose. Something's wrong with the valve. And I jump out of the car and I wiggle the wire and it fires right up and keeps on running. So I turn it off, pump up full of gas, use the bathroom, come back out, fires up and keeps on running. Now, of course, my mom's freaked out. And the other thing that was kind of cool was an hour into the trip, my phone rings. I didn't know who it was. I didn't answer the phone. I told my mom, I was like, that's weird. Somebody's calling me from California. Probably a telemarketer. Well, about half an hour after I leave there, 2-hour point, phone rings from the same number in California again. I'm like, what do I got to do? I'm driving through the desert. That's what the telemarketer. No, it's the daughter of the woman who works at the hotel front desk. She's just calling me on her cell phone because they don't have long distance service from their landline. She's calling me from her cell phone, which has a California number. And she says, how you doing, Mr. Short? Are you still on your way here? I'm like, pushy, right? Yeah, absolutely. I'm still on the way there. I did say my GPS was going to be 3 hours, and it's only been 2. And she's like, oh no, you said you were coming from Roswell, so you're coming through the desert. When we know our guests are doing that, we call and check on them about every hour until they arrive, because cell signal's spotty out there. So if I don't get to talk to you, and then I don't get to talk to you 2 hours in a row, we call the sheriff's department and they go on the route looking for you to make sure you're all right. And I was like, oh, by all means, if you don't hear from me in an hour, send the sheriffs. I should be there. And so I was like, this is pretty cool. For $40 a night, they're going to make sure you stay alive and get there. So that was a Wednesday night. And I got there, and it was, your standard roadside, not the nicest hotel in the world, but actually pretty clean, and people were really friendly. And that was Muleshoe, Texas, until the morning where I tanked up and took off and made my way, well, not all the way to St. Louis, Missouri. That's going to be in the next video. What happens to Paul and Muskogee? Skits out.